Welcome back to Viltrumics. To wrap up this episode, we wanted to discuss in more detail the mid-credit scene and how the rewatch is shaping up. Megan, how does this elevate the hook of Invincible as we're watching along?
Yeah, well, so we kind of end with Damian Darkblood kind of insinuating that I love the way he says it too. He's like, the Guardians, Omni-Man, the one like the killer must have been one of them. Or he just says it in a cool way.
Yeah.
Um and Cecil's just kind of like shut up. But then um once he's alone with Donald, he's like, killer's still out there, might decide to finish the job. Um, and it is great, just like dramatic irony, because we know who the killer is. Um, and even though Cecil doesn't, he's probably suspects by this point, even though he doesn't know for sure. We do know, yeah, Omni Man is still out there. Like, what is his job? Like, what is he planning to do? Um, And so I don't know, it does kind of like get you engaged just in the sense that Cecil, who's clearly like a someone who's in a powerful position, is like he's kind of on it. He's like he Cecil's just as a character is always just really locked in,
Yeah.
like I feel like he just always it's just his one goal is just protect the earth.
Yeah.
He's just like a dick, but like that's what you have to be, I guess, to protect the earth maybe. Um Yeah, I don't know. So it's definitely a much easier hook than the episode prior. But it does kind of, like I said, it keeps you engaged and you want to kind of see like Cecil, um, how like Omni Man and Cecil, like how those two sides will kind of like come head to head. Like uh what's gonna happen between them. Um, I don't know. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Well, and we see that Omni-Man and Cecil have a relationship. Um, and so to kind of slowly have it implied that maybe Omni-Man was the one who did it. Like, I'm sure that was a lot for Cecil to take in, even if he doesn't accept it yet. I think
Yeah.
he kind of knows. It just feels like the only real possibility. Um, and I just don't think he wants to go down that road just yet. And I think he's a kind of person to need hard evidence in order to
Yeah.
make the claims, but I don't know. I think Damian Darkblood has some great points, and maybe we should be listening to the demon detective.
I know he is cool. See, that's another relationship that I'm curious how is that relationship between him and Cecil played out in the past? Is clearly they don't really like each other. Um, but they kind of know they're maybe on the same side at least. But Cecil thinks he's kind of I don't know, a nut job maybe, but also is he's probably onto something.
Yeah.
Um, so I hope we find out more about Damien Darkblood as a character and see him do cool stuff. Um, who knows? He doesn't show up in season two at all, so
No. Where did our man go? Where was he banished to?
no, I don't remember. I guess we'll find out on the rewatch. Or I mean, maybe we'll find out. I don't know where he's banished to, if we even know that. Back
It
to hell.
it's fun to rewatch these episodes and notice the small things. Like
Mhm.
like we've been saying. Like where does Damian Darkblood go? Where does Nikki from the first episode? Is she gonna come back? Like we're noticing these really, really small characters. And I think it's because we know how intentional this show is. So
Yeah,
who knows who we'll see and who will come back, but it'll definitely be for good reason. It'll be a good payoff. That's
I
for sure.
think so. Yeah.
I wanted to bring it back to before the mid-credit scene because I forgot to point it out. But at one point, Mark is talking about how he, you know, after he yammed on the flaxen, he was like, I don't know what happened. I guess I just got mad. And so
Mm,
I'm curious like how much of being a superhero is about controlling your emotions and like also having no
right.
emotions because we've talked about that so often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Omni-Man often brings it up too. He's like you you just can't like you can't have the emotions
Right.
doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting. I feel like a lot of superhero media does show or like explore kind of in an effort to kind of like humanize these like larger than life beings and show that they are just like us essentially or like a reflection of us.
Mhm.
Like give in to their emotions and we've seen Mark kind of like beat up on some people because he's upset or angry. Um, and I don't know, like I was thinking just about like recently, like Spider-Man, No Way Home. Like we see how mad like Tom Holland Spider-Man gets. Um, and so I think just because we as like people have so much like complex emotion, uh, and I feel like we in general like restrain ourselves a lot just because we kind of have to. But yeah, I mean, so it's even more interesting like if you had like these really powerful abilities, um, that you'd have to be even more cautious, more like uh, what's the word? Um, I guess cautious, just about like not letting those emotions dictate your actions,
Mhm.
um, because you wield just so much strength. I don't know
I
if that answered your question.
I don't know if there's really an answer,
Yeah,
but it's just interesting because like when Mark does feel those emotions, like that's when he's the most strong, you know?
yeah,
So like
yeah.
maybe our more emotions are important, but then if you compare like him to Nolan to the Viltrums, like Viltrums are very, very far removed from their emotions and there's one of the if not the strongest kind of beings. So I don't know. It's really interesting to just think about how Mark is the strongest when he's very in touch with his emotions. Nolan can go both ways.
Mhm.
The Viltrums are strong because they're not in touch with their emotions and because of other things, but genetics.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting, but I think you bring up a good point that like you have to be able to control those emotions too because you don't want to I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. It is. I do feel like in this episode, like that it's a good example of the emotions kind of driving Mark to break free from those constraints and then saving Eve. Whereas like Nolan and the Viltrumites clearly try and just shut out emotions because makes them weaker or just probably less efficient like soldiers. And I do think that general like theme, if you will probably play out a lot across the show. Um, I don't know, like I think in this scene and like when Mark freaks out against Ainstrom, it is because like someone he likes, someone he loves or whatever is being threatened. Um, and where the Viltrumites don't like fight for that, but he does, and maybe that's what in the end will help him win because he is fighting kind of for someone.
Mhm.
Um, so I imagine the show will probably explore that a lot. I think Nolan as a character, and we're already seeing it happen in like season two, is letting kind of himself succumb to those emotions, in like rethinking like what his actual like desires and motives are.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very interesting.
yeah, so maybe I don't know. I'm still anti-emotion, but maybe the show will change my mind.
Yeah,
Or Inside Out 2 will change my mind.
true.
But overall, pretty pretty solid second episode.
I never miss.